Indonesia is one of the world's most important economies. Currently, however, it isn't ranked that high. Here's a graph on the nominal GDP of Indonesia compared to other major economies. Here you can see that Indonesia's nominal GDP as of 2023 is over $1.3 trillion, which puts them above countries like Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, and Turkey, but are far below the United States, China, and Japan. Nevertheless, Indonesia is still the next up-and-coming major economy due to its large and growing population, abundant natural resources, and strategic location in Southeast Asia. Furthermore, if we take a look at Indonesia's nominal GDP by year and forecasts according to the IMF's data mapper, we get to see that the country is expected to grow to over $2 trillion by 2029, which would mark a significant milestone in its economic development. But these are the future projections of Indonesia, and what we want to know in today's video is the current size of Indonesia's economy today. Sure, we have an understanding of the country's nominal GDP, but there's actually much more to one's economy than just GDP. Indonesia is rich in many different industries, ranging from agriculture to manufacturing and mining. So, let's try to understand these industries and their size. But before that, let's first talk about another important indicator that is related to nominal GDP, and that is GDP Purchasing Power Parity, PPP. GDP PPP is different from nominal GDP as it adjusts for differences in the cost of living and local purchasing power. While nominal GDP measures the total value of goods and services produced in a country at current exchange rates, GDP Purchasing Power Parity, PPP, considers how much that money can actually buy in the local economy. Here's a graph of Indonesia's GDP PPP as compared to other major economies. Here you can see that unlike nominal GDP, Indonesia's GDP PPP is actually much higher at over $4.3 trillion. That is already surpassing the United Kingdom, France, Turkey, Italy, and a long list of other major economies that surpasses Indonesia's nominal GDP. So, does this mean that Indonesia is richer than these economies if we use the nominal GDP? Well, not exactly. GDP PPP shows how much goods and services people in Indonesia can afford compared to other countries, but it doesn't mean Indonesia has more wealth overall. While Indonesians can buy more with their money compared to those in high-cost countries like the UK or France, their incomes are still lower in absolute terms. This is why GDP PPP is useful. It gives a clearer picture of economic power in real terms. It shows that Indonesia's economy is much stronger than its nominal GDP suggests, especially when it comes to local spending and business potential. There are three major sectors that contribute significantly to Indonesia's economy, and these are agriculture, industry, and services. Let's first start with agriculture. Indonesia is abundantly rich in agriculture. The country has vast arable land, a tropical climate, and a workforce that still heavily relies on farming. It is even well known that Indonesia is one of the world's leading producers of palm oil, rubber, coffee, cocoa, rice, and spices, with its agricultural exports playing a significant role in global supply chains. Here's a graph on the value added of the agriculture, forestry, and fishing of Indonesia. Here you get to see just how big the agriculture industry is. As of the latest year available for 2023, the entire industry's value added is over $175 billion, which is actually the fourth largest globally. Let's graph out and compare their value added to the rest of the world. Here, you can see that while they are far below as compared to China, they are still above many major economies like Brazil, Russia, France, and so on. This big value added then helps drive some of Indonesia's total exports. Here's a graph on some of Indonesia's agricultural exports for 2023. Here you also get to see that agricultural exports are significant. Animal vegetable oils take up over $28 billion. There are also other smaller industries like coffee, cereals, and animal products. Beyond the agriculture industry, Indonesia has a big industry sector. This includes manufacturing, mining, and construction. Industry now contributes around $551 billion for the year 2023. This, again, is a substantial industry and is driven by several key sectors, including automotive manufacturing, mining, construction, and energy production. But one of the most important industries in Indonesia's industry is no other than their mining industry. Indonesia is well known to be amongst the world's largest producers and exporters of natural resources, particularly coal, nickel, gold, tin, and copper. The mining industry has long been a cornerstone of Indonesia's economy, contributing significantly to government revenues, employment, and foreign exchange earnings. Let's graph out Indonesia's exports again, but this time the products coming from their industry. Here, you can see that the country's exports of iron and steel to electrical equipment are massive. But again, you can see just how much nickel and rubber contributes to the economy. With the nickel industry contributing over $6.82 billion in Indonesia's exports for 2023. Lastly, and finally, we have the service sector. The service sector is bigger than industry, as it comprises retail, finance, tourism, and other consumer services. With a growing middle class, demand for services has increased substantially. Here you can see that the value added of the service sector of Indonesia is over $587 billion, which goes to show just how important the service sector is. Now, beyond this sectoral contribution, we also have to talk about Indonesia's tech sector. Indonesia's tech sector is rapidly emerging with companies like Gojek, Tokopedia, and Bukalapak leading the way in digital transformation. But just how important are these to the overall Indonesian economy? Well, let's find them out. Let's first graph out the largest companies in Indonesia. Here you can see that some of Indonesia's largest companies are long-time conglomerates like Bank Central Asia to Telkom Indonesia. But tech companies like GoTo Group, Bukalapak, aren't actually that valuable, right? GoTo Group, for instance, which is already the largest tech company in all of Indonesia, is just valued at $5 billion as of the time of writing. So, just how big is this sector's contribution? Well, according to GoTo Group's official website, they actually contribute over 2.2% of Indonesia's GDP and serve a population of more than 270 million. As we just mentioned earlier, Indonesia's nominal GDP is $1.3 trillion for 2023. If GoTo were to contribute 2.2% for that year, then their contribution in real value would be over $28.6 billion. That is no small figure. Indeed, while their market capitalization isn't as big as Indonesia's conglomerates, their contribution is substantial. But how is that the case? Well, GoTo Group makes money by running some of Indonesia's biggest tech-driven businesses: Gojek, ride-hailing and delivery; Tokopedia, e-commerce; and GoTo Financial, digital payments and fintech. These services are deeply integrated into people's daily lives, which is why their economic impact is huge, despite their lower market value. Moreover, if you actually take a look beyond this, you can also see that the tech sector has been attracting substantial amounts of money. For instance, if we list down some publicly available information on some of the largest amounts of money raised by Indonesia's startups, then we get to see that there are no small figures. Gojek alone has privately raised money of over $4.72 billion. Finally, before we end the video, we also have to talk about foreign direct investments, FDI. This is an important indicator as it tells us how important Indonesia is to global investors. Foreign direct investment, FDI, refers to money invested by foreign companies or individuals into Indonesia's businesses, factories, and infrastructure. It's a strong sign of economic confidence because it shows that international investors see Indonesia as a profitable place to do business. Here's a graph for that matter. Here you can see the FDI net inflows in the balance of payment of Indonesia. Here, the figures are substantial. They average more than $20 billion per year. A lot of this, as some may say, is directed towards Indonesia's mining sector. Indeed, one of the leading sectors, as we just saw earlier, is nickel. This is one of the key drivers for Indonesia's FDI. So, as you can see, Indonesia's economy is enormous. They are an integral part of the world. But anyway, do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.